you have the desired direction and say, you have growth.
Right.
Whether you fail or you succeed, either way, you're going to learn something from it and ultimately be better.
Being in those trenches with you, you get inspired. I get inspired. It's in those moments where you don't have the best on that given day and you can push still beyond the limits of what you believe you're capable of. That's where I grow as a coach too, because I'm like, oh, wow, like we're capable of that.
We interact with people all day, all the time. And some people just leave their mark on you. And there's something special and different about the way that they do things, to a way that it inspires you to do something for yourself and for the world in a different way than you saw it before. Welcome to the Built for Growth podcast, a place that I have dedicated to motivating, empowering, and elevating you through knowledge and shared experiences to be the best version of yourself. So come along with me and my amazing guests who are here to inspire you and I in all the ways. If you are ready to grow above and beyond, then this is the podcast for you. On today's episode of Built for Growth, I have a dear, dear friend of mine. His name is Korey Goodwin, and he's a performance coach. But to me, he is so much more. He's been a mentor for me. He has been somebody who has helped pull the most out of me in training camps, and he's just a really amazing, special human being, and he's got quite a story himself, overcoming drug and alcohol addiction as a young man to becoming what I think is one of the best, most comprehensive performance coaches that's out there. He's very underrated, and you've probably never heard about him. He's not wildly popular and needs a lot of work on his Instagram, if I'm being quite honest. But he's a great human, and if you ever get the chance to meet him or work with him, I could say nothing but great things. So enjoy this listen, and as always, thank you for listening. It is so awesome to have you here today, Korey. We were kind of shooting the shit a little bit before already. It's just like, I feel like we always pick up where we left off.
Right.
Yeah. But you brought what did you bring? It's a wedge?
I brought a wolf
wedge.
Yeah, it's just a slant board, like with the craze of like knees
this
over
toes. This made me
toes.
sweat a little bit when you brought this, so I'm gonna lie.
Yeah, some flashbacks.
Some flashbacks. It's like, I remember the barbell and the weights and the slanted.
Flashbacks, all kinds of flashbacks. Coach Cal flashbacks,
Yeah.
Casita flashbacks.
Yeah. Let's start with that. Let's talk about the Casita, because it's a special place for me. I have a lot of great memories there. A lot of really, proving to myself what I'm made of, really digging deep memories. Maybe they're not great. I don't know. It's touchy.
It's a little both.
A little of both.
They leave an imprint, that's for sure.
But how did that come about? The whole, the Casita and, training people, and I guess it's probably a loaded question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all right, though.
Yeah, let's start there.
I'll answer it. I think for me, the Casita came about actually from my wife from Aberdeen, because there was no Casita. COVID had hit, and we were looking for a place to live and to change where we were, because the facility that I was working out of basically closed down at that particular point in time. And so kind of transferred and went into my garage a little bit at a house that we were renting, and she was like, I want to buy. And I said, okay, sure, let's go. And so we were actually in Boise dropping off our daughter at school, and my wife found this house, and she was like, this is the house. We got to go check this house out. God put it on my heart. We need to go check this. I was like, man, she used God. Okay, I guess we got to go check the house out. She's dropping God bombs, so I better pay attention. And so we did, and she kind of saw this vision of this room. The people that had the home before us used that 660 square foot area as kind of they had a wood furniture company. And so they used it as storage. And so she could see the vision, and she could see it a little bit more than I could. I was kind of stuck because we had this nice hill by our other house, and I loved running up and down the hill with people and working with them on that. And so I was like, man, I'm just not seeing it.
In Vegas also?
Yeah, in Vegas also. And I was like, nah, I'm just not seeing it. And so sure enough, we bought the home, and we just started turning it into that.
Now you see it?
Now I see it, thanks to her. Her vision,
awesome.
My action. So it's been amazing. Now we got the Casita.
So the Casita is like, for those of you who've never been there, it's just a separate little building that you have pretty well stocked with equipment You walk in and it's just a space where torture happens.
It's not just torture, I promise.
I mean, I could maybe count on one hand, if not, minus a few fingers, the times that I've been there that it hasn't been torture.
In one shape, way or another.
Oh, yeah. Whether it's been like therapy, rehab, or it's been workouts. But no, I mean, and all joking aside, it's magical what you can do with a space like that when you've got someone like you that just knows how to make everything very dynamic and specific as an athlete. Like you really don't need a huge, big, fancy gym facility to get work done. Because I will tell you what, when you and I were working together, when I made my return, I was working with Coach Cal.
Yeah.
And we'll get into, Coach Cal and how great he is. But you being an affiliate of his, and, he told me, Miesha was like, this is how we can work together because Korey's in Vegas and he can put you through these workouts. And Coach Cal has just a garage, he has the garage there, and it's like his equipment's not, it's not new, but it's effective and it works, and he's very creative in how he makes those workouts, and so are you. And so I remember, just busting my butt in there, whether it was on the bike or throwing weights or medicine balls or whatever else, and I knew that I was in like the top 1% shape.
Yeah, you were
everybody,
in
anybody.
that camp, elite for sure.
Very.
And you had a real hunger and a desire at that particular point in time too. And I even think you phrased it through some of the different things. And you and I talked about this, about kind of veterans and how they evolve. But you called it the Miesha 2.0. Mm-hmm. And you and I had those conversations about where you were coming from, the break that you were coming off of, and getting into that. Mm-hmm. And so many times when elite athletes, and especially veterans, have come from one place and they're getting into kind of another, or the twilight of their career, they're coming back and they're trying to do something different, they try to get back to where they were. Mm-hmm. And when they try to get back to where they were, they're missing out on so much. They're actually missing out on everything they've learned from that point to where they are now, and instead taking all of those learning experiences, successes, failures, and everything, and then evolve that forward versus trying to go back to where they were. And those that evolve that forward can create more success and a different version of themselves. And I believe you did that at Miesha Tate 2.0. You did some things that most people don't fathom doing. Regardless of the wins, the losses, or anything along those lines, you did some things that people wouldn't volunteer themselves to do. And in that is success in and of itself.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think there's a special mindset that has to go into wanting to be the best. And there's a special mindset that even takes another level of dedication, is working with, someone like you and Coach Cal, who know how to not just run you through a workout, but, really find out what you're made of and push the most and pull the most, more than, either one of us, but maybe thinks is possible.
Right.
And that's the beauty in it, right? Is like I think to see someone push past that point, when you saw that they were battling, mentally, because the physical load is so hard, but really what it comes down to is the mental battle.
Right.
And they're on the battlefield, and you're right there witnessing it, and you're that kind of person that can help give them that extra, that 1% that they need to push through and get to the other side of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. For me, kind of being that, and again, when we got together, it was, kind of a team with, the training lab and Coach Cal, and then myself kind of being an affiliate with that, and a wing, and the communication, and being in the trenches with you day to day with those. I'll never forget those times. I'm very grateful for the time that we spent together, and I've gotten a friend because of it, not just an athlete that I worked with, but I got a friend because of it, because of those times. And you get forged in the fire together. Coach Cal calls it all the time, being forged in the fire, being forged in the garage. Mm-hmm. I knew I couldn't have another garage. There's one garage, and that's it. But I could have the Casita, for sure.
The Casita is great. It's
and
great.
I could put the Spanish flair on it. My wife's born in Mexico, so we just called it the Casita. So we just add that little bit of Spanish flair to it. But again, being in those trenches with you, like you were talking about, when you're chasing that elite performance, and you get inspired. I get inspired extremely. Yes, we have some plans set out and we want to go to this limits. And sometimes we hit those limits, sometimes we don't, and sometimes we push beyond those limits. It's in those moments where you don't have the best on that given day and you can push still beyond the limits of what you believe you're capable of. That's where I grow as a coach too, because I'm like, oh, wow, like we're capable of that? Like, good girl. Like, get after it. Let's go.
Yeah.
And that inspires me. That inspires me to be challenged. I think for me too, and I've had conversations with people, but they wouldn't necessarily go through all the workouts that they put their athletes through. But in at least one camp, I got to go through at least 2 of some of the most grueling workouts that you guys go through, that you would go through. And so I would go through it so I could experience it. Yeah, I'm not a fighter and all those things, but I'm going to go through it and I'm going to get forged with you. But then when I'm there with you, I can relate to you. I can speak the language, I can speak the culture, and I can meet alongside you to try to help get through those moments that may have been challenges for me. And you may have different moments of challenge, but at least I can have that commonality with you to help you drive a little bit more.
Yeah, you read my mind because that's exactly what I was going to talk about. I was going to say, like, I know sometimes you were watching me go through these workouts and then we'd be done. You'd be like, yeah, I got mine tonight. Like, I'm going to do this tonight. Or you had already done it. You know, you'd be like, yeah, I did this one last week. Get prepared. Like, it's tough.
Yeah.
And I always liked that sense of, I'm not alone in this, that you're out there and you know what it feels like. You know how much it hurts and what's on the other side of it.
Right. And I think it's even tougher at times when it was just me and you in there versus you have other bodies in there to compete with, other bodies to go after it with. And that's where I give you even a little bit more credit because you're going through these, just very, very challenging championship style to pull that savage out in you. And yet you're doing it with just one person coaching you through it. You're not feeding off the group or competing against the rest of the group. And sometimes that's a lot more challenging than it is when you have other people to push that level with you. And so, especially in a one-on-one setting, that's where I try. And then sometimes it's when do I coach and when do I pull back and let you go? Because if I'm just flooding you all the time, and I've done this early on in my career, then the athlete's like just getting pissed off at you.
Right.
And not that they still don't anyway, but they just get to that point where it's like, bro, anything you're saying means nothing right now. So it's just kind of that fine line, and that just comes with experience.
I remember sometimes you and or Coach Cal would just be like, okay, I'm just going to shut up now and just like don't say nothing because I think you guys can tell like sometimes that warfare that I'm having is has to be won alone, like in a fight, I mean, there's only so much you can say, and there's points in time when that's helpful, and then sometimes like, at least for me personally, sometimes I have to go into really dark places in my own mind and spirit and fight that fight, and it's 100%. It's like that internal battle. It's like nobody can win that one for me.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. In our field, it's called self-organization. Do you give your athletes enough space, enough time to self-organize? Or are you always organizing for them as a coach? And those coaches who are always organizing for them, it's hard then when they get into the heat of the battle and they get into that moment of being able to call on something or figure something out on their own. I'm sure you can relate to this, especially a lot in the fight game and some of the coaches that you've been around. I believe your former coach, Robert Follis, was one of the best at kind of managing that, of teaching, but then allowing the person to self-organize. And when you don't have that, in a fight, if a message is coming from the corner, it's a 2 to 3 second delay before that message get there. That moment's gone. When that moment's gone, how am I reacting to the next moment and then creating my own new moment? And a lot of times when you're just relying on that voice, that's, in my opinion, just my opinion, based off of my experience, it's why sometimes you see fighters freeze, because they have very limited self-organizational skill, not because of themselves necessarily, but because of the way that they're being coached.
Yeah.
And so it is that fine line of giving that messaging and finding that, and then also moments of allowing the athlete to self-organize.
No, you're absolutely right. It's your opinion, but it's true. And I can speak from firsthand experience. I've had really noisy corners, and a lot of times what either happens is you try to listen and it messes you up because, again, that information has to go in what they're seeing through their brain, out their mouth, in my ears, through my body, and then the moment's gone.
And here comes a big right.
Right, and so the moment is so changing so fast. I have to be really good at problem solving very quickly. I can't wait for the information to come. I have to trust myself, and that's something that Robert always said too. Is like, trust yourself. He's like, if you hear me say something and that you're on the ground and I'm yelling for something, he's like, and it's not right, you don't feel it, you don't have it. He's like, don't listen to me.
Yeah.
He's like, you make your own decisions. And you have to trust yourself. He's like, you didn't get here, by someone else doing all this for you. Like, you need to lean into that.
Right.
Lean into that trust that you have. And it's true. And so either you end up listening and freezing, or you end up tuning your corner out entirely.
Right.
And it's just not helpful in either way.
Right.
And so, these last few years have really leaned into, don't say much in my corner.
Yeah.
Like between rounds is okay.
Right.
But like not much when I'm fighting. I want to know that if you are going to say something, that it's something that's real important. And you got to also choose the timing, like when there's space and I'm not in the heat of battle.
Right.
And it's got to be something that's simple and conceptual. You can't. I'm not a puppet in there. I can't be. Maybe both of us maybe wish that at some point, but we can't. It's not what it's about.
Yeah, you definitely can't in those moments. It's literally like, and I'll use this actually with some of my other field athletes and other sport athletes that I work with, is try to count by fours. And while you're trying to count by fours, listen to me tell you what cone to go to. And then while you're trying to count by fours and tell me what cone, now I'm going to give you a color-coded cone. And then you start messing with the brain. And literally you go from an elite athlete, an elite mover, very fast, very quick, agile, and then we're processing all of those things at one time. It's like back to rudimentary, elementary. They're like a newborn fawn. They don't know what to do. They're
stumbling around.
They're just like, what is going on? But it's a visualization drill, and it's also a mental awareness drill of this is what you're doing to yourself when you're trying to think of 92 technical things at the same time. You physically cannot perform in those moments, no matter what the sport. And so it's, how do I keep my mind quiet? How do I be as present I can, but still process the necessary information? And that's a training. That's part of training. That's training in of itself physically, and then it's also the mental aspect of it, and then it's a blending of coaching in addition to that. And then it's the athlete taking those messages and learning how to self-organize that into a preparation and then to a plan. And that's just been my experience of the elites that have been able to do all of those things and manage those things and continue that success.
It makes me think about the processing speed of a computer. When you delete all the cookies and you delete all the things and you get all the stuff that's not helping the speed of the machine work.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of conceptual like that. By the way, I want to say we were talking a lot about Robert Follis, and this is a bear that's actually made out of one of his flannels.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. So
That's crazy.
I always have him here represented in the podcast, and he was my big inspiration for starting this, and that's why I call it Built for Growth, because Robert always used to say, in many of his, we'd call them Follicisms.
Yeah.
He had so many great quotes and everything, but he would always say that change is inevitable, but growth is not. And I'm like, that's so true.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there whining and complaining and crying that, what happens to them, but they're not sitting back and taking the accountability of like, well, what did I say and do about this situation, and how did I get here, and could I have done something different, and what can I do differently moving forward so that life doesn't just happen to me, but that I actually have some desire and direction and say. When you have the desire, direction, and say, you have growth.
Right.
Whether you fail or you succeed, either way, you're going to learn something from it and ultimately be better.
Right.
Where change is just passive. We're going to age, we're going to change, we're going to get these different things that happen to us, and that'll just happen. But like, how do we aspire to be better people because of our experiences? And that's what growth is for me. Right.
No, I mean, I think that's very, very, very well put. The false flannel just kind of took me real quick. Like, wow, that's. I mean, it's a trip. Robert and I were just starting to get pretty close. before he, tragically ended his life. And in that, I'm just kind of taken back a little bit in some of the conversations that we're having and just kind of floating back. But he was really good at telling good stories and talking about analogies, and that's why he's left an imprint. Because within those stories and within his persona and within his character and the way that he could communicate with people, he communicated specifically in stories to leave an imprint. And then what ends up happening is then an athlete can self-organize because that story is remembered a little bit more than just some technical advice or information. And then that story is actually applied and more applicable to be able to learn and grow. That being said, the way that Follis did those things, in my opinion, was to help the athlete make a better decision to want to grow. Because most athletes, you do have those experiences, success and failures, but a lot of athletes don't learn from those experiences because they don't choose to grow. They don't choose to be built for growth. They choose to allow other excuses to come in of why they weren't successful. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier and just searching for yourself and understanding more about yourself, quieting your mind, growing, and in understanding a little bit more about your coaching, understanding to be able to self-organize. When you're self-organizing, you are able to grow. When you're not, you're willing to make more excuses of why you weren't successful and you blame others.
Oh, isn't that true? I swear we're on the same wavelength right now because I was thinking about the typical gym hoppers, is what we call them. And they come into a gym and they've got all this, they're happy to be here because they've got all this bad history that came from this other gym and this is going to be great and new. And a year later, same thing, cycle repeats, and it's our gym. That's just like the bad guys, and we train this way, and we don't do enough. The coaches, and then they're at a new gym, and it's like, and then a year goes by, and they're at and it's just like, okay, so is it the gym or is it you?
Or is it within? Is it the gym or is it within?
Yeah, but I think that self-reflection is really important, and the self-organization. How difficult is it to get your children to listen to that, children and or partner, because that adds a different dynamic, but you coach your son, you coach your daughters as well. I know you work with Dorian and
I think so. I have 4 kids. Dorian's 25, Langston's 19. Annalise just turned 15 yesterday. Good Lord.
Oh my God. Doesn't seem real. Like, this can't happen. I still remember Langston, such a cute little boy, and like he's turning into a man.
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. And then Korey's 12, getting ready to turn 13. So I've coached them a lot, each one of them, through their sporting endeavors. And I've also leaned on people outside of me, and in particular Coach Cal in the training lab, and leaned on them to help. Because a lot of times as a coach and as a parent, it gets very clouded. And whether that's me coming up with what I think is a great prescription for training, it's that coach-athlete relationship, and it's that coach-parent relationship. And Korey Goodwin, I apologize to you because I've failed in so many ways, to where I was coming out college. I worked for an elite sports performance company. She played soccer or football across the pond, and she was basically on this journey. She started later, so she didn't start playing club soccer till around 12 or 13 years old. And as she was going through that journey, Aberdine and I, it's obviously our first child, and we're going through that together as well. And we just made so many mistakes as parents, and me in particular, I speak for myself, not for my wife, but me in particular, I made so many mistakes that cost both relationships. They cost the coaching-athlete relationship, and they cost the father-daughter relationship, because I thought I had this perfect plan that was set out. And if we do this plan and you do everything that I say to do on this plan, you're going to go reach the goals that you want to make. Just follow my plan. And so I programmed everything for her. And she would show up and she would bust her tail, and we talked about work ethic and physicality and all the messaging. Yet when she wasn't matching up, and I'm putting all this time and energy, and I'm doing that into my wife and into my other child at the time, and into my job, and I'm doing all of these things, what's end up happening is I'm not seeing her match her part up. So now I cross that bridge and I'm like, no, you're not doing this, this, and this. You need to do this, this, and this. I already tell her what to do as a father. So now I'm going to tell her what to do as a coach too. And I'm going to keep hammering her, which unfortunately I did.
And I would assume you'd hammer away differently because of the close relationship too. And this is where it gets a little complicated, right? Like a coach might have ability to hit those points a little bit differently than the way it's going to come from her, because she looks at you through a different lens and she loves you through a different lens, and vice versa.
Right.
So that closeness can also open up for more hurt.
And there was a lot of that. There was a lot of drive and wedge between that. And, you know, so I reached out to Coach. He helped me with some prescription and planning and kind of redirecting some of her training and some of those things. This was basically through like college. And then in addition to that, though, I started to evolve a little bit more and make it more her journey than my journey. And I had this perfect plan to help her out. Mm-hmm. And that's where I evolved with my other 3 children and allowing it to be their journey and knowing when to a little bit more efficiently keep them accountable and keep them accountable to their dreams and their goals and their desires without flooding and overwhelming them. And it's still a challenge, but at least I'm aware and I can pull back and I can get more feedback from them from a different lens than what I did before when I was younger.
What do you think was the turning point for you in learning to let an athlete make it more their journey than, what you thought you might bring? I think a lot of coaches have great intention and they love their athletes or they love their children or they love whoever that they're working with. But they don't always recognize that they're making it more about their plan, which they think is the best, than allowing for the athlete or the student or whoever to make it their individual plan.
Right. I think for me, I learned from watching what worked and didn't work with Dorian. Then I also started watching other coaches and getting educated outside. Always kind of been continuing education outside of what I know, and then just trying to seek people that are smarter than me or know something different in a different way, get educated from them. So right around 2000, this is about 12 to 14, I went down with a friend of mine, was hosting a clinic, and there was a guy by the name of Franz Bosch that was at this clinic, and there's another guy by the name of Nick Winkleman that was kind of hosting it. So I got invited. I was able to go down there and hang out and learn, and we just learned a lot about coaching variation, also coaching language. And so that started to flip. Not isn't it just that. For me in my own history, I'm a recovering drug and alcoholic addict. And so I was able to start reflecting on some of that time for myself a little bit more. But it came through failures of my daughter pushing, not wanting to be close to me, not wanting to have much to do with what I was saying, and the wedges and the arguments and the fights. And then when we got to training, it wasn't good. It wasn't fun. It wasn't enjoyable for either of us, and we were just kind of dreading it and getting through. Now, that being said, this girl, and this is all credit to her and power to her, she played at a Power 4, now Power 4 conference, but then Power 5 conference at the University of Arizona. So she went on to play at a very, extremely, very, very elite level, got to play in some NCAA tournament games, almost made it to a Sweet 16. That wasn't because of me. That was, to a certain extent, a little bit in spite of me, and it was all more to do with her own from within and her strength and her courage that she had from within to be able to do those things and take some of her own learning lessons and failures, et cetera. And then she ended up finishing up at Boise State. That being said, it was a lot of that failing and a lot of that pushback that I was getting from my daughter, and be like, I got 3 more. Do I want to drag my wife, myself, our kids through this whole experience again and again and again? I was like, oh, hell no, I won't make it. And neither will they. And so I was like, I gotta learn. I gotta grow. I gotta figure out what's going on. And so I just started doing a lot of deep searching, got a lot of help from my wife as well, counseling, the whole nine, man. Just not afraid to be coached, even as a coach.
So you mentioned recovering drug and alcoholic, you had gone through a period of time. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and your journey and your transition away from that?
Yes. I think it was early on in my life. So I was roughly, 16 when I started, 16-ish when I started using drugs, and then alcohol came a little bit late, not much later, but like 17. And so for like 16 to about 20 was just me searching the wrong way. For me at that time, it was the wrong way. But if you look at it, it happened to be part of my own failure and learning experience to help me grow. But grew up in a family. Both my parents did the best that they could. I don't blame my parents. It's not their responsibility. It's not their fault. But they ended up getting divorced. And then there's a search. There's an identity search for that. There's stuff that happens at dad's family. There's stuff that happened at mom's side of the family. There's stuff that happens in between. There's stuff that you get caught in the middle of as a child. And you don't really know what to do on either side of the coin. And sometimes they're getting along, sometimes they're not. And then, my mom had other relationships, and then my dad ended up getting eventually remarried. And so you're going through all this kind of chaos and searching of what's what with not many tools, because at that time your parents don't necessarily have the tools, and they didn't have the tools. They did the best with what they had at the given time and did the best in what they thought was best for me at the time. Whether it was right or whether it was wrong, it just is what it is. So I started searching at 16 because I didn't like what was going on. I didn't like any of that. I had a lot of pain, anger, hurt, loneliness, frustration. And so it's like, where can I gravitate to kind of be at peace or at ease, where it can be just mindless? And for me, I gravitated toward drugs and alcohol to a certain extent, and some friends that were in there that you think are, your friends during that time.
Kind of a form of escapism.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And it's also a search of where is my identity? Where is my number one identity rooted? Because we have multiple identities, but where is my number one identity rooted? And is that so like this table? Is it concrete? Is it stone? Is it to the point that it can't be rocked? And that's where I've learned to evolve as I go through those things. If that identity is taken care of, then I can go through. But I didn't know that. And so I'm searching with drugs, searching with alcohol, searching with trying to be a professional baseball player, even though I had an uncle who was a professional baseball player at the time. And then I also had an uncle who was a professional bodybuilder. And so you start seeing these things, and they're reaching certain levels. You're like, man, I want to do what they're doing. I want to, go down that path. So then you search for that identity, and that runs into a dead end. Then you're hanging out with friends who are on the verge of like gangs and doing different things, and not on the verge. Some of your friends are in gangs, and it's, do I want to go that way? And then you're kind of redlining right at that area for a little bit, and you're just searching all over the place. You don't even necessarily understand at the time. I didn't understand at the time why I was doing the things that I was doing. I was just doing them because, like you said, that kind of escapism, that coping mechanism was drugs, alcohol, and those environments, and the chaos and the adrenaline in those environments. And that's, for whatever reason, I chose that. Nobody chose that. It's nobody's fault. That's me. I chose that as my identity. And obviously it didn't work out because I ended up turning 21 in drug and alcohol rehabilitation. So I'm 21 and then my life just started to shape and change after that. And then all of those learning experiences, my own failures, ended up taking me into the field that I am now. Because one of the things that my mom tried to work out for me, and kind of as a nugget at the time, was baseball. And so, hey, look, son, if you go through this, we'll give you an opportunity. She was just searching for everything she could because she saw my life spiraling and potentially me not being around anymore, and that scared the absolute dog piss out of her. Yeah. And so because of that, she wanted to do what she could. So I ended up going to this baseball camp after my second knee surgery in about 18 months. And there I met the people that really transformed my life into doing what I do now. And they took me through my rehabilitation and from my knee surgery. And they had such a profound impact on my life at that particular time that I was like, I got to do this. I want to do this for people. What they're doing for me, I want to do for others. And it was just so profound. I'm getting a little emotional right now, but it was so profound in what those guys did for me in that time. And so I just started gravitating towards them and grew me in the education and point me in the right direction. And that's
what was profound about it?
Because I was searching, and I'm getting to the point where I can go play baseball now, which was kind of the nugget. And then boom, I have a pretty traumatic knee injury. I dislocated my knee, tore some stuff in my knee, full rehab 9 months as I was just coming off of a 2-year layoff from drug and alcohol rehabilitation and getting my stuff right and lining everything up. And then boom, that hits. And I'm like, again, like now you hit, like you thought you hit rock bottom. Now you're getting challenged differently without the coping mechanisms. So from there, now it's like, okay, what do I do? Well, they were like, come here anyway. Even though you're not going to be able to play, come here anyway. We'll take care of your rehabilitation and we'll get you to a point where you can go.
And
that's
who were these guys?
These guys are, one of the guys' name is Jeff Sassone. Another guy's name is Mark Verstegen. And they're the guys that run Exos right now. And there were some people within that coached me, that helped me through that rehabilitation. Just coaches, Scotty Puchek, there's Craig Friedman. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that ended up coaching me through that process. And they just took me under their wing, not necessarily knowing at the first part, but when I started reaching out to them and being like, man, this is maybe what I want to do when baseball is over, they just helped shape and mold me. And so that's a big part of what I take into when I'm working with people. When I'm in the fire one-on-one with somebody, I get it. Maybe a different sport, but I get it and I understand it and I want to be there to support.
What are some of the things that they would say or tell or do that would make such a profound impact? And the reason I ask is because we interact with people all day, all the time. And some people just leave their mark on you.
Yeah.
And the world. And there's something special and different about the way that they do things to a way that it can inspire you.
Yeah.
Coach Follis,
100%.
That it inspires you to do something for yourself and for the world in a different way than you saw it before. And so the fact that that moment led you on a trajectory that you're still to this day, I think you're one of the greatest. I think you're underrated. I think that more people should know about you. I think if you knew how to run your Instagram, you'd probably be.
Yeah, I don't run anything. That's the problem. I need to grow there.
Yeah, for sure. But
Yeah.
you're doing great things, and I want more people to just know about it. But I think this is such an important moment in your story. You're coming out of a rehabilitation center. You probably are lacking something to put in the place of what drugs and alcohol used to provide for you. But you say, you know what? You're gravitating towards sport. I've been in that position before too. It's like, this fills some shoes, right? This makes me feel important.
Right.
There's things that I do here that make me feel valuable, and I find value and I'm drawn to that. That was my story with sport. But then to just get hit with a huge knee injury that sidelines you and takes all that out, all the work, washes it right out from under your feet, or so it feels, might not seem fair. And in that moment in time, to have people that come in that can still influence you in a positive way must have been profound.
It was very profound. I think for me, I know for me, one of the things that kept me moving forward in treatment was my relationship with God at that time, because I had nothing else. I was diving in, morning journaling, praying, reading, go to Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, come back. And so when I was in treatment, it was actually, even though chaos, it was one of the more calm moments of my life, periods of time of my life. It was like I was literally in the eye of a hurricane. Coming out of that, I shifted to now baseball is going to be my identity. And so then when I saw that potentially getting away, all these learning lessons that I just had, I kind of stepped away from them a little bit, or they weren't as consistent. And so, yes, now there's these people to show up for me, and you asked me a little bit of what was it? Literally, it was just consistency and showing up in their energy, their vitamin E. They had vitamin energy and they had vitamin encouragement. And so that encouragement and that energy and that consistency of them showing up for me every day in my life at that period of time helped me tremendously, even though I was kind of still searching in a different way for my baseball identity was getting rocked. And that was actually kind of what I struggled with as an athlete. And then I evolved again after my athletic career was over. But that's kind of a long-winded answer to your
No,
question.
that's a great answer. I mean, I think that there's not you couldn't say probably too much about something like that, because I feel like those moments are, when they set our whole life on a different path. It's a powerful moment. And I think what I want the listeners to take away from that is that rock bottom isn't always rock bottom. Sometimes there's a lower point when you think you hit rock bottom, and you're going to hit rock bottom multiple times. But that faith is powerful and relationships are powerful.
100%.
And that even when you hit those low points, I think searching for one of those two, and self-connection. When I say relationship, I also mean with self. But I think that's also relationship with God. I think relationship with God is also relationship with self. Because even in the Bible, you read, like, we're created in his image. So it's
right.
like when you heal self, you also heal spiritually. You just heal the relationship with God. So I think they're very tightly interconnected. And I'm glad that you said that, too, because I always want to, tell people, like, just say a prayer, like, see how it feels.
Yeah.
Like, try it. Sometimes you don't realize until you try, you brush it off. And, same thing when I was going through that breakup, and, this was before you and I knew each other, but I was
Right.
going through the breakup, a toxic relationship. And
Right.
I retired at that point. And I went on a 4.5 year, leave from the sport, which I thought was going to be forever. And then I finally realized that it wasn't the sport. It was like myself and my situation, and that I had to heal. And that was very similar. It was the relationships, and it was spirituality. Those were the two things that brought me out of those moments when I was like, is my life even worth anything? Does it carry any value? Because I had tied myself so much into the value of being being an athlete.
Right.
And, and walking away from that, and just, I was so scared. I didn't know what to do. And the fear was just like this noise of just like drowning everything else out. And
Yeah,
I had isolated myself, and I had just allowed so many things, being passive, not deciding what the hell it is that I wanted, just going through the motions. And then I realized that that isn't how I want to live my life anymore. I do want connection.
Right.
I do want say. I do want drive. I want determination. I want to have a say in my own life.
Right.
And that's
definitely growth for you, and 100%, because I don't know a passive Miesha take now.
Yeah, 2.0. You met me at 2.0.
I did hear the stories. Robert and I talked a little bit too about some of those things even before we met, and so yeah, just some of those challenges and things that you were facing, and yeah, that passivity and just who you were and what your identity was and all those things, and then you start growing. You take 4 years off, and you start growing your person, your character, your true identity, your faith, and those things, and growing those things, and becoming concrete in those things, and now look at you.
Yeah.
You're crushing life, girl.
Yeah, it's
You're
not too bad
crushing
now.
life.
There's an upside to all of this.
You're crushing life. So.
There's an upside to all of this. Okay, what's it like working with Aberdeen, and how have you shifted through that? And like some pointers, like I think that, well, let me say from the female's perspective, that a lot of times men are in the role of overseeing or being the organizer or the instructor or the teacher or the coach when it comes to their female counterpart. It's kind of rare, if you think about it, that you see a female in like a head coach position. Like it doesn't really happen in football. It doesn't really happen in MMA. It doesn't really happen in, you think of all the sports, and especially if it was female in a male head coach. Like imagine the waves that would create. And so we kind of just assume that it's this way in life, and it's just, it's what we see and what we experience for the most part. And so it seems all but natural until you're the female that is your own person, and then you love this man in your life, but you don't love the dynamic that it can be of always having to be feeling like you're bossed around or being told what to do, and that crossover of the coaching and the relationship can get really muddy. And I remember in my former relationship, when with my ex, was that I felt like I lost my partner in all of that because he just became the coach. And the coach, what's nice about having a coach that's not your partner is that you see your coach. They might be great one day. They might be a dick one day. Maybe, we might have all different experiences. We do.
Right.
But you get to leave that session.
Right.
You go home and you talk to your partner about what an asshole your coach is that day.
Yeah, you don't get to tell your partner, oh, hey, well, maybe you do, though.
Yeah. But I think that is the hardest part about being the, I don't want to say like subordinate, but, like that person that's here and like the male gets to be always teaching, coaching, telling, demanding. And it can make that so difficult where you feel, I think that where the women struggle is we feel the emotional loss of connection in the partnership. And that gets really sticky and challenging. So
For sure.
I'm curious, like how you navigate those things. And I'm sure it's been a growth process, just as you mentioned, father-daughter relationship.
Right.
And, you've made mistakes and, Dorian, did her thing and you're proud of her and you both grew. I'm sure I know you have a great relationship with her. But I know it's got to be tricky when it comes to the person, your wife, your significant other, that life partner.
Yeah, the wife. So we've been married 22 years.
That's beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And so testament, a lot of that, obviously, to her and also to me as well. But in that 22 years, there's so much kind of ebb and flow in the marriage and challenges within the marriage and particular points of challenges in the marriage. We still have those because in nature, we're for ourselves in nature, right? Like we come out of the womb and in general, we're for ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And so how do we navigate
Babies are
that?
selfish as
hell. You know that, right?
I know.
Why is that? I got one here. I got one here. And I'm doing my,
You ever see those videos on Instagram? It kills me. Probably not because you don't spend much time on Instagram. But I'll send you some. But these little baby featherless birds will like shove the other babies out of the nest. They'll literally scoop under them with their little butt, their rear end, and they'll put their wings up and they'll like keep pushing and kicking until they push the other one out.
That's great.
I mean, but just going into what you're saying, but that's survival. It's like if there's one less mouth next to me to feed, I'm gonna get what I need.
Right.
So I think too, as humans, we're inherently selfish. We have to learn through our conscious mind how to be considerate of other people,
and
at least equal to ourselves, at least equal. And sometimes in other, when you're in a relationship with someone, you want to be selfless to the point where this person at times is more important in what they need and what they're doing at that moment in time.
Right. So with Aberdeen and I agree with what you're saying. With Aberdeen and I, at times I've coached her, and at times I don't coach her.
Yeah.
What I'll do is maybe go on a walk with her. And we'll go walk. And no matter what's going on, we've been doing this recently. I just go on a walk. I know she's had a tired day. I know if she sits in the house, especially in Vegas, she's not like super, super fond of Vegas. So when it's summer and it's hot and we got to be in the house and it's at the end of the day and she wants to talk about work and kids and all this stuff, hey, let's go on a walk. We go on a walk. It's like pulling the string. It's just like me. Pull the string, and for 45 minutes, she's just letting go. I'm just like, yeah, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Just kind of going along.
You're listening very intently like a good husband.
Yeah. And so we've gone through these kind of, ebb and flows, but I have a friend that works with her that's a physical therapist. He's going to be able to be a little bit more aggressive and give her some of the treatment that she may need.
Yeah.
Sometimes she's doing Orange Theory stuff on her own, whether I approve her of it or not, it's her journey. If she's ready and when she's ready to come work with me, I'm always here for her. I have to continue to reiterate that. Like, hey, babe, like, I hear you complain about this and this. I'm here if you need me. I'm here if you want to train. I'm here. And that's probably the biggest learning. Like, if you want me, I am here for you. And sometimes I'll say, hey, you want to go get a workout in or a walk in? Nah, I don't really want. Okay, no problem. And then 2 minutes later, oh, my back. Or, it's like, babe, I'm here if you want.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of leave those things up to her.
Do you find that she reciprocates that more? Like
No.
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 She's like, I want nothing to do with that.
Yeah, no. She's like, I know at one point in time, she will, at one point in time. It's my job just to be available for whenever that one point in time is.
Yeah.
When she's ready, she'll be ready. And I used to take it super personal.
Yeah.
Like super personal. Like,
But it's not.
babe, like I do this, I do that. I got you. I can do this. But I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that. And I'm like, oh my God, like, are you kidding me? Like, you're my worst client right now.
And you don't even pay me, right?
And she's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you coach all these people. But with me, oh my gosh, you're just terrible. And so it's just, kind of goes on this ebb and flow. So I've just learned to get out of the way. And when she's ready, I'm here for you, babe. I love you. I care for you. I want the best for you. And I'm here for you. And what I've tried to do is help support her health journey and whatever that looks like for her, and trying to provide and be there and support her in that manner. And I think that's part of the learning growth for that I've learned for our marriage.
Yeah. I like the take a walk. I like that. I think that's powerful because I bet you there's something healing in the movement too.
There, 100%. There's healing in the movement, 100%. Never underestimate the power of a 45-minute walk.
Oh, yeah.
The 45-minute walk is unbelievable from endorphins. It's great. One of the best mental health things that you can do for yourself. Just the consistency of walking 45 minutes, what it does for blood glucose levels and A1C and on and on and on and on without getting into all the crazy science of things. But most importantly, when you're doing it connected and you're doing it together, the conversation, the 45-minute dialed in. When you sat down and we talked about this, I like doing this because I'm getting a 45-minute to an hour conversation with somebody that we rarely don't get in this world. We rarely get that with our spouses. So if we can do that consistently on a walk, that starts to reform and refine that closeness, that bond, that connection. And when we do those things, when we are consistent with those things, it definitely helps us out.
Do you find that it's easier to listen with a sincerity when you're on a walk versus if you were just sitting down and having to sit there?
No, ding, 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 winner, winner, chicken dinner, yeah.
Yeah.
100%. It's like, if you're walking and you're listening, like, it's a lot easier to take that in because I'm now more mentally present. I'm just moving. I'm walking and I'm listening to the words that are coming out. Do you hear the words that are coming out of my mouth? Yeah, I do, babe. I do.
Yeah.
And walking is a lot more engaging. And then she feels a little bit, or she believes that she's being more heard in those situations as well versus just sitting there and looking, and then you start to read your partner. Are you really listening to me? Or, are you still thinking about this?
Well, and you might be trying
this?
to honestly listen
exactly.
too, but when you're not doing something with your body, your mind just wanders. And I feel like that walking's got to provide that kind of passive outlet so that you can be present and think and listen.
100%. 100%. And so, that definitely has helped us tremendously.
Yeah. Well, I do want to dip a tiny bit into the sciencey stuff of walking.
Sure.
Tell me about what do you find with people who go on their afternoon walks?
So for me, I've read a few different studies. I can't point to the specifics of the studies, but there have been some studies about walking in the morning, walking in the evening, walking after meals, and they've done this mostly in the executive world, and they've talked about productivity. And the other thing that they looked at was a group that every 30 minutes was getting up and walking around for 2 minutes. So every 30 minutes, taking a 2-minute break. In school, they have them all the time. They call them brain breaks and this, that, and the other in elementary school and stuff, which I've learned from Aberdeen. But nevertheless, that keeps your blood glucose levels down. That manages your insulin levels and sensitivity. That also continues to drop your A1C and your blood pressure. And from an executive and an owner standpoint, it increases productivity. It also creates a heightness and awareness of basically presence, and that can relate to feeling more kind of wanted at that workplace. So increase in productivity, increase in those health benefits, and you stay consistent with that, and you're going to begin to feel good about those things. But then, in my opinion, based off of what I've seen in my career, when people are making those choices, the sweets are not necessarily the reward. They're actually a punishment.
The what?
The sweets, so
Sweets,
like
like candy.
sugar
Okay,
and
yeah.
candy, and whether it's fast food or whatever,
Yep.
that people exercise a lot of times and like, I want to reward myself. But those that are consistent with just those walking things and that kind of stuff, and they start to feel better. It's been my experience that my people that have done this, when they start to eat more of the things that cause inflammation, sugar, fast food, processed foods, all those things, they start to feel like dirt. And so when they
They
feel
start
like,
to notice it because they're not living
yes,
in dirt anymore.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
now you become a little bit more aware. So maybe I only have a little bit more of that. Not that you don't ever have those things, but maybe I only have a little bit. Now maybe my timing's different with those things. And you start getting creative if you are going to touch into those things. All that from some basic walking, some basic health benefit, and some basic mental benefit.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I think it's so true. And there's one friend of mine who had gestational diabetes. So when
Okay.
she was pregnant.
Yep.
And she was, at a party or something like that, and a get together, and she had a slice of pizza, and then she had one more slice of pizza, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna need to do something about this. She's been walking regularly. She's like, my insulin's starting to spike, and she went on a walk, and it was like 30 or 40 minutes, and because of that, her blood sugar dropped so low, just from the walk. Of course that's anecdotal, but it's also
Right.
it is talked about and proven in
Still.
studies that this type of thing, it does reduce the blood glucose. It does reduce your insulin response. It does improve your insulin sensitivity. There's just one story that her glucose actually dropped so low that she had to eat more, I don't know, she ate some strawberries, something like that,
Right.
to get it back up.
Right.
And it was just interesting. Another friend of mine is wearing a continuous glucose monitor, and she was in a bit of a crisis, a spike, and she just did 50 squats and brought it right down. And 50 squats is not much. People think, oh, I got to go, fitness isn't for me. I don't want to go to the gym and that
Right.
awkward situation. I don't know what to do. And I'm going to, spend an hour there, and it's boring, and it's too much time. If you do 10 squats every hour, or you get up and walk around for 2 minutes every 30 minutes, that's massively impactful.
It's huge. Like think about this. They talk about this like compounding interest financially, right? And there's also compounding interest, return on your energy. I like to call it ROE,
Yeah.
return on your energy. And so if you did, your friend, and she was doing 50 squats a day, well, let's say she did it for 30 days straight. Now you're talking 1,500 squats by the end those 30 days are over. So it's that compounding interest. You're like, what? I just did for the month 1,500 squats. I went through a challenge for myself where all I did was 30 pull-ups and 30 dips a day. I did that for, I believe it was 60 days straight, a little bit over 60 days straight. It was like 65, 66. I don't remember the math off the top of my head. But by the time I'm done, the numbers equated to basically 20, like right around 2,100. So it was close to 70 days, 2,100 pull-ups and dips in that period of time. For me, from a strength standpoint in that, because I did a little kind of pre-test, I took 100-pound dumbbells. In the beginning of that, I was able to do 4 reps for dumbbell bench. I was able to do 4 reps at 100 pounds. But that 60 days of consistency, 60-plus days of consistency of doing 30 pull-ups and 30 dips and not doing much else, now all of a sudden, that 2 reps, when I retested, I did 16 reps of 100-pound dumbbells at that particular time at the end of those 60 to 70 days, just from the consistency of what's seemingly nothing of 30 pull-ups and 30 dips each day.
Yeah, that would be 30 pull-ups and 30 dips is not that much.
You don't think of it like crazy. Yeah.
How were you doing the pull-ups? Would you do all 30 in a row, or you do
No,
you
I just do sets. Generally, I'd work up, but it'd be 8, 8, 8, and then 6 is what I would do, or I'd mix it up, and then I'd vary my grips because you can look at some overused things within that period of time. So I'd vary my grips, where it's neutral grip, alternating grips, pull-up grip, chin-up grip, all kinds of different grips, rings, all kinds of different stuff, and then I'd vary my grips with my dips too. So that was the one thing that I did, so it wasn't so repetitive in nature.
Yeah.
But literally, that's what I did, and then at the end of that period of time, that was the end result. And I was this was only a few years ago, and even I was mind blown, like, wow, that little consistency showed up to 14 reps difference, because I didn't do any dumbbell bench press during that time. So that showed up. Actually, it was 4 to 16, so 12 reps difference in that period of time, which was crazy to me.
That is, but it just goes to show it doesn't have to be super complicated.
Yeah.
For average people to incorporate a little fitness
Right.
goes a long way. And what I'll tell you is, like, you're so right. When I'm, in fit and I'm working out or I'm doing things, it can just be like hiking, anything like that. The things that used to provide that like dopamine hit that weren't as good for me, like, a cupcake or this or that, the moment that I put a little eggs into the basket of movement and health, and I go in like that ebb and flow too,
Right.
as a professional athlete, sometimes it's like balls to the wall, gung ho, fitness, diet, and then, for a week you'd be like a slob, and then, in a little bit in the middle in the rest of it. And so in that middle ground, I do kind of know like what those extremes can be like, but in the middle ground, you have a little room to play and observe. And, it'll be like maybe a day or two, I don't really like focus on a heavy workout. Like maybe it's just an evening walk or something like that. But
Right.
And in those moments, then it's like, okay, for some reason, the other things that are not as good for me become more tempting when I'm not doing the things that are, actually good for me.
Right.
Because it's like one or the other way, my body kind of wants some kind of stimulation.
Right.
And it's like, well, if I'm not going to give it through a little bit of movement, if I'm not doing that for those days or making the mindful choice of like, oh, I'm going to do this morning yoga, sometimes I make up the excuse like, oh, I'm look at me running around cleaning the house, it's like,
Yeah.
there's my workout,
Yeah. Which can be, for sure.
Which it can be, sometimes I have fun with that. I'll set a timer for 5 minutes and I'll just go see as fast as I can go. I literally sprint around my house. I do squats while I'm at the dishes, the dishwasher, everyone dishes a squat. And I have fun with it because I try to mix it up like that. But I guess the point in case is, what I'm trying to say is I've noticed that there's a correlation between the less movement that I do and my desire for things that are not very good for me, to like eat things that aren't very good for me.
Right.
And how that flips pretty quickly once I decide, and it's even just could be like 10 squats in an hour. It's almost like those things, like you said, just become a little less appealing because it's like, I'm doing work on this side and it's fulfilling me. And now this kind of undoes that work. And so therefore it's like not as fulfilling.
Right. 100%.
So that's just powerful. I feel like that's something, a little takeaway for people to just remember that, and it doesn't take much. Just a little bit of deciding, a little bit of dedication, a little bit of growth mindset.
Yeah, 100%. I think once you start and you're just doing little stuff, like sometimes what's so daunting to people, like if you take a look at the Ozempic craze and the semaglutide craze right now, it's fulfilling a lot of people that weren't willing to do that little bit of consistency and work. Now, in some cases, it's medical. I get that, all those things. For the most part, though, our nation in and of itself right now is right around 75% obese. Of that, 75% overweight. Of that, close to 52% is obese. That's the pandemic. That's the epidemic. And now we have a regime a little bit with Mr. Kennedy that trying to go after that, go after our food supply, go after those things. That food supply is also keeping people from being active, and it's also just kind of the way, not all Western medicine, but the way that Western medicine is geared towards, can I take something for a minimal effective dose versus putting in that minimal effective dose consistency. And right now you're seeing that, and you're seeing a lot of people come up. I've seen several of my own clients, even though I may have a different perspective, they choose their own journey, and then I try to guide them within that journey. Nevertheless, they're willing to take something because they think it'll give them the result versus just doing that little bit each day. And when you do that little bit each day, you actually take your own ownership, and it's mentally healing because you're the one doing it, not some pill that's doing it for you.
Yeah.
And so I'm on the same page with you. Is that little bit of consistency makes a difference. It doesn't always have to be a casita push. It doesn't always have to be a garage push. You can have those moments. The consistency, the small consistency of doing those things each day for everyday athletes, everyday people,
It makes you feel like a winner.
it just builds to a championship life and a championship quality of life, which we're lacking right now. And hopefully that's beginning to change with podcasts like yours.
Thank you. I hope so too. I'm definitely trying to leave that mark for what it's worth. I want to help people for a free resource.
Right.
I want people to have access to the things that we didn't. My parents didn't grow up with podcasts. We talked about parents. They're doing the best that they could. It was like
Right.
more resources were limited. That's what I love about podcasts now. I mean, you turn on the news and it's like being force fed. Just like it's just so much. And when you could sit down and have a genuine conversation with someone, and other people can listen to that and benefit from it. I think that's powerful.
100. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. So talk to me, we're kind of wrapping this up, but about, what all encompasses, because I want the listeners to understand that you're not, just a performance coach. You also do a lot in the physical therapy realm. Like you helped me a lot when I had my knee injury. I came in there and that moved the needle a lot. That was great. I loved it.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
So, just kind of talk about that and your business and the type of people that you typically work with.
Sure. I started in a sports performance company coming off of that injury. And the sports performance company at the time was the name of Velocity Sports Performance. And so I learned a lot in that. I was the sports performance manager at that company. I was in charge of interns and intern education. And I was also in charge of coaching our coaches at the time as well. But then it's marketing, it's sales, it's learning all about the whole aspect of it. We were in Florida at the time. That goes out of business. I come here to Las Vegas following my boss about a year later after he left. He reaches out to me and says, Korey, I want you to get things going here at Athletes Performance at the time. It's called Exos now in Las Vegas. And our job was going to be to get guys ready for the NBA draft and to get guys ready for the NBA combine. Off season, sorry. And so we're working with veterans. There was another company, skills company, that we paired up with. We were doing that thing. It's a sports performance company also. In a sports performance company, you kind of have a lane that you got to stay in. You'll see this at the PI as well.
Yep.
You have a lane that you kind of have to stay in, right?
Yep.
So you have your neuroscientist at the PI. You have your physical therapist, your nutritionist, and your sports performance coach.
Yep.
And they have to all be on the same page for that athlete.
Yep. And
that's a lot. That's a lot of athletes.
400 of us.
That's a lot. That's a lot of athletes, and even in these private sectors, it's the same thing. But you have a lot of athletes. You have 4 people that, or more, because there's multiples at each of those positions to handle the volumes. You got to get all those people on the same page for that athlete. Well, once the company I was working with, they left here. They were great to me. They offered me a job, but we just decided to stay put in Vegas at that particular period of time. Then I was able to start to branch into multiple lanes. So I was able to look at physical therapy and start putting my hands on people. I was able to branch and get a little bit more educated in the nutritional side of the coin. I was able to focus on some of the movement and strength and conditioning, which I already did, but I'm able to branch into all these other different realms. So I can cross the lanes. And not that you're not aware in those situations, you're aware, but I can dive in. I think that's also what made Coach Cal so great, is what he does.
Very comprehensive.
He's very comprehensive, and he understands the whole system. And for me, for what I do, understanding all the parts, and then if it's outside, then I got a resource for you, because I've been educated on what a good resource looks like. So if it's something that I can't handle, or something that I don't believe that I'm going to be able to help the person that I'm working with, whoever that person is, then I'm going to say, here's a resource that can do these things, and this is how we work together. And so for me, branching off has allowed me to become more well-rounded, but understanding too of the person that I'm working with and being able to meet them there. So I can treat a tissue injury that's getting in the way of training, and not just say, hey, let's push through it today.
Right.
Well, let's
just strengthen it, which is something that annoys me sometimes. And it's like,
Yeah, let's just get it strong.
Yeah, that's such a common thought, and a lot of physical therapists are just about strength, but it needs to move right. Again,
Right.
you're basically learning to walk again, at least with my knee injury. And so I remember I had some ankle pronation, issues, and we did different things. But the body sometimes gets confused or forgets how to move correctly because the way that you move when something is hurt, to kind of protect it. It's a protection mechanism. So how
Right.
do we get back to moving right?
Right.
That takes work.
And it's work, and then it's understanding methodologies too, because there are so many methodologies out there, and understanding the practitioners of those methodologies and how they deliver, and then taking those methodologies and delivering them into your environment.
Yeah.
Kind of like a chameleon, understanding what's all the environment and then adapting to the environment of who walks into your environment.
Yeah.
And that, for me, without glossing myself too much, like that's one of my skill sets. And not everybody has that skill set. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that's where my experiences have led me. And so right now, the people that I work with, I do a lot of long-term athletic development because of my own kids. So working with them, and that's just kind of been a period of what I've done throughout my career, and a portion of where I started. So I work with those types of athletes, and that's basically ranging from around 4th grade, 5th grade, all the way to like 18 years old, and helping them along their goals and their journeys, and making sure that those journeys are their journeys and not their parents' journeys. So helping some of the failures that I had as a parent, and helping the parents.
Right.
With that. So it's a long-term athletic development. And that's all about what we talked about, is small little pieces, consistency to get big growth as we go down the line.
Yeah.
And so many parents nowadays want that immediate gratification for their kid. They want to be the top elite wrestler, and they want it overnight, or they want it within 6 months, or there's a reason why it's called long-term athletic development. It takes time, and everybody's journey is different. And being okay with that, and understanding that, and being educated as a parent. So that's one kind of group. And then I work with a bunch of elite executives, people that are worth multi-million to up to $1 billion, and so on and so forth. And I work with those executives on performance, and I also help manage their health and their bodies. I do that with long-term athletic development as well. But I help manage their health and the bodies. And a lot of the times they're coming to me with injuries that a physical therapist, a doctor, or some other practitioner was not able to manage.
Yep.
And they're in significant amounts of pain. And so helping them manage that through all of the lanes that I've been kind of acquired along the way, those are the types of people that I'm working with.
Yeah. Remember, do you still keep in contact with Keith Lee or Kevin Lee at all?
Keith, yeah, both those guys. Yeah.
How's Keith doing? Because you worked with him. And Kevin too.
I worked with Keith and Kevin. Both came from Detroit.
Yeah.
Obviously, Kevin brought Keith eventually, and Keith showed up. Kevin at the time was, I think, like 20 or 21. I think he was 21, just young, upcoming, freaking phenom at that moment in time. And then there was Keith. And Keith was literally like 125 pounds, soaking wet. Like literally didn't have to cut weight to fight at that particular point in time.
I remember that's about when I met him, because he came into the gym. And
he was sparring with you and stuff at
and then
times.
I was kind of whooping on him for a little bit, but until he turned into a man.
Yeah. But, it took him a bit, but Keith, just from the beginning, was just kind of an amazing soul. He is what you see now. And it's just, so from 17, basically through his whole, fighting career, we worked together for roughly about, 10 years. I look at my son now, my son's 19. It's like, man, I met Keith when he was 2 years younger than you. And then, obviously him and Kevin going through that, and us cornering some fights together. So yeah, it was pretty cool. But Keith's killing it, man. He's killing it.
He's doing his great. He needs to probably get in and get some workouts.
Yeah,
for all that food he's eating
we
over
actually
there.
just talked the other week about that. He was like,
living the good life.
Yeah, he was like, man, you need to move to Texas.
Is that where he's at now?
Yeah, he's in Texas. And then actually my wife and my son Langston, they were out in New York, and they FaceTimed him, and he's like, "Oh, we just missed each other," because he was in New York, and he had just come back to Texas, and he even told my wife, he was like, "Yeah, you all need to get out here to Texas."
I like Texas.
And get a place out here. So
What area of Texas do you know?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Okay.
But
I like the Austin area a lot. I like the Austin area.
Yeah, it's nice. My sister just moved to Frisco, Texas a few years back.
Okay.
They love it, man.
Yeah, it's good out there.
They love it. It's good stuff.
So, well, that's good. I think we touched on all the things I wanted to and some things that I wasn't expecting to.
Amazing. So
you are fantastic. Cause I knew we were going to sit down and have a great conversation. We always do.
Always do.
I mean, this is nothing new. We sit and do this
Yeah.
all the time while you're, putting me through the gauntlet, so to speak.
All day, every day, and twice on Casita days.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I don't have quite as much breath to ask as many questions
right.
as I do right now. But we have some good memories.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, Korey. You're a good dude, and I love what you're doing. I want to see your business continue to be successful and your family and all that good stuff. So thanks for coming out today and being a guest on Built for Growth. And, you're a great representation of what this podcast is about.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm extremely grateful to be a part of this and that you invited me and that you thought about me. And I'll always remember this. So thank you very much.
Yeah.